MMA factory in Paris as they bring in guys.
Oh, it got him! Nice counter right from
I hated this thing growing up. Oh, you can't imagine. I hated the sandmine, everything. I hated my life.
Behind almost every successful MMA fighter is a compelling story of hardships and adversity. Hardships contribute heavily to the success of fighters. MMA is not only a physical sport, but also a mental sport. You need immense mental strength and toughness. Your mental toughness and determination can either forge a champion or form a loser. In this video, I'm going to tell you why a hard upbringing can forge a champion. Thousands of years ago, a man by the name of Zeno set sail on the Mediterranean Sea with a ship filled with some of the world's most valuable goods. Zeno was ready to make a fortune out of this. But then all of a sudden, his ship had wrecked on the rocks, and all of his fortune was gone, lost at sea. This event devastated him. It hurt him financially, emotionally, and physically. This step back could have driven him to suicide, addiction, or a boring life. But instead, this event created stoicism. This made him resilient and paved a path to become a successful philosopher, and his work is still talked about today. Resilience. Why is it so important? And what is resilience for a fighter? Resilience is the ability to endure hardships, deal with setbacks, endure pain, and never giving up. In a sport like MMA, where you need to go through grueling training sessions, face incredible defeat, injuries, and a low-paying come-up, being resilient is needed to become successful in the sport. Just like Zeno, you can credit a fighter's success to the hardships he has faced in life. Those hardships can make or break a person. For example, Demetrius Johnson grew up without a father figure and constantly got abused by his stepdad. He hated his father for leaving him behind and never being in his life. He swore to be a better man than his father was. Demetrius could have ended up just like his dad and like many other fatherless men, but he used it as fuel to become the fighter and the father he is now. Have you ever heard the saying, "Hard times create strong men"? Hard times make men physically and mentally stronger. These hard times help fighters push through and motivate them to become the fighter they want to become. Facing such adversity makes building a fighter easier, as they have already been through worse than fighting. This links perfectly with the Zeno and the Demetrius story. Did you ever notice that so many great fighters come from such poor countries or regions? Almost all of the great Brazilian fighters had a hard childhood. Charles Oliveira lived in the favelas. Jose Aldo barely had enough to eat. Alex Pereira was very poor and an alcoholic by the age of 14 and worked in a mechanic's shop. He hated his life, and at the age of 21 he started kickboxing and became a two-sport world champion. He fueled his fighting with his hard upbringing and saw it as the only option. Fighting helped him get out of poverty and helped him become sober. Muay Thai fighters in Thailand start fighting as young as 6 years old. This culture and environment of fighting creates such strong men and carves them into fighting machines. Your environment has a big factor on your success as a fighter. These poverty-stricken regions often see themselves idolizing successful fighters from their region. Dagestanis idolize Khabib. Thai fighters are seen with great respect and honor. Kids look up to them. These young fighters see that these greats were once poor just like them and think to themselves, why can't I? Another reason why these nations thrive in fighting is because of their strong culture towards martial arts. Brazil has BJJ, Russia, Cuba, and America have wrestling, Thailand has Muay Thai. Khabib said that if he went with his father to his father's friend's house, and the friend had a son around the same age and weight as Khabib, he would make him fight the other kid. We also all heard the story of Khabib wrestling with a bear. Stuff like this wouldn't only happen in Russia. Bo Nickel said that when he had wrestling tournaments, he and all the kids there would go into a big room in between matches and fight each other, almost like a mini fight club. Small things like these are what can shape a nation and create world-class fighters. So many poor people see fighting as their gateway out of a hard life and their only plan to success. In such poor countries where there are few opportunities for a good life, it's fighting or crime. Someone like Leon Edwards is a great example of this. He grew up in Jamaica, but then moved to a poor area of England. His father was a gang leader, and Leon was going to turn out just like him as he started to live the gang life. Soon after his father was killed, his single mother worked 2 jobs and raised enough money to send Leon to a MMA gym. This was the best possible decision, as he started to put his focus on that rather than a life of crime. I'm going to talk about the Spartan population. They dominated many battlefields in the 900th century BC era. Spartans were some of the most feared warriors of all time. It was seen as cowardly to come back home from a lost battle. Their whole culture towards men was to forge them into warriors. This mentality towards war and battle can be why they were so victorious. Not only were they in peak physical shape, but also they had insane resilience. But why were they like this? Because the young Spartan men were trained from the age of 7. Not just any type of training, they trained in boxing, wrestling, javelin, swimming. At the age of 18, soldiers had to go out and steal their own food and survive by themselves for a bit. If they were caught, they would be punished severely. This created stealth and made them independent. It was normal and encouraged for young boys to fight each other, and whippings and beatings were common. This not only gave them a peak physical body, but also gave them the mindset of a warrior and prepared them for battle. This hard life is what made them such strong warriors. It prepared them for war. After all they had been through and suffered, war didn't seem all that bad for them. It's almost the same for fighters that went through a challenging childhood. These events helped prepare their mind for fighting. But why did these fighters become successful and didn't waste their lives like many others in their situation? It's because they used those hardships to fuel their career, and they saw it as an escape out of their hard life. Rather than seeing them as an excuse to waste your life on drugs, alcohol, crime, and how could I forget?
There was years where my father didn't even make $100,000. Or barely made $100,000. And sure, we had a maid, but she only came twice a week. What do you think happened the other 5 days? You think those dishes wash themselves?
If you liked this video, please subscribe and like. Let me know what you want to see next.